Okay, record. All right, we're good. It's quite a difficult thing to do, but there are some things that we can do to, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Can you still see my screen? Can someone let me know? I feel like you can't right now. I think I hit stop. No, okay, hold on. Why can you not see my PowerPoint? Oh, technology, I love you. Okay, I need to escape. Next time we do this, it'll be better, I promise. This is the first time doing with this one. Okay, let's try this. Okay, there we go. All right, so anyways, making peace with food. We're just gonna go ahead and get started now. All right, so I love this quote, but it's from the Intuitive Eating book, and it just talks about the fact that when we restrict, it just sets us up to eat a ton of what we're restricting. So I'm sure you girls all know that, and you've experienced that, and it's not fun. But so the key to making peace with food. So there are some things that really are important in order to actually do this process, because it's one thing to say, oh, I'm making peace with food and I'm going to let myself eat whatever I want, but it's another thing to really believe it. So some mindset things that would be included in this would be that you allow yourself to eat when you're hungry, regardless of the last time you ate or how much exercise you did. So if it's your rest day and you're just happening to get hungry more often that day, you wouldn't say to yourself, oh, I didn't exercise today, so even though I'm hungry, I can't eat. That wouldn't be making peace with food. You can eat any food you enjoy, but the thing that the thing that most people, including myself, take it too far is, oh, I can eat anything I want, so I can eat it whenever I want and whenever I feel like it. But the more important thing is that we're staying tuned into our body, and that if we really did eat whatever we want, whenever we wanted, we wouldn't feel good. And if we were paying attention, we would know that. So the goal is to treat your body well while still enjoying your food. So making peace with food means getting rid of the whole idea of good versus bad, because the authors of the book actually said this, but no one food has the power to make us skinny or fat. So eating one cookie won't make us fat, just as eating a plate of broccoli won't make us skinny. So kind of getting rid of that black and white thinking, and recognizing that our food choices do not reflect who we are as a person. And this one, I'm sure we've all experienced. If you have a bad eating day and at the end of the night you're going to bed and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that today. What was I thinking? I'm so stupid. Like, I can't just do this. We connect our eating choices with who we are as a person, and we feel weaker. We feel just, like a worse person, and it really doesn't have anything to do with our morality as a person. So that's all part of making peace with food. But the biggest key is unconditional permission. When you love someone unconditionally, you love them no matter what. And when you give yourself unconditional permission to eat, you give yourself permission to eat without strings attached. So, oh, I can eat that if I run 3 miles today, or I can let myself eat whatever I want as long as I eat less than a certain number of calories. As long as there is a string attached, it's not unconditional. So I'm not going to read this whole thing, but there are a lot of fears that hold us back from doing this process, from truly making peace with food. And the problem is that these fears, they can hold us back, and they can make us think that, or they don't let us truly believe that we can eat anything. So then your mind is still going to be deprived if you don't really believe it. And so it's still going to lead to that deprivation and that overeating eventually. And you won't really be experiencing true satisfaction with your eating as long as in your mind as you're eating, that cookie or, that piece of cake, and you're saying to yourself the whole time, you shouldn't be eating this, you shouldn't be eating this, you're going to have to go run. That's not going to be very satisfying. And so, the main thing is actually believing what you say. And once this happens, food begins to lose power in your life. I'm sure we've all kind of experienced that, like, feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to stop thinking about food, or planning what I'm going to eat, or, just it's taking over your thoughts, and it'll start to lose that power, and that feels really good. So the main fears that I've heard from people and that I experienced in the beginning was, I will never stop eating, I won't eat healthfully, and I've tried that before and it didn't work. And I totally thought that I had tried it before. So the first one, I will never stop eating. And keep in mind, if you have questions, please type them in the chat. So someone comes up to you and tells you, okay, intuitive eating, basically you eat foods that you love, you can eat whatever you want, you're trying to listen to your body, but yeah, you don't restrict foods. And they're going to be like, what? If you let me do that, I will go crazy. But eventually, once you know, again, I italicize know because there's a difference between thinking and saying and actually knowing that those foods will always be allowed. That urgency, that drive to eat, to overeat them eventually goes away. And there's this idea of habituation that they talk about. Not only does that urge to overeat them go away, but eventually you'll get kind of used to, or maybe even sick of some of the foods you thought that you would binge on because of habituation. So I love this analogy that they talk about in the book of, if you think of the first time that someone told you they loved you, it probably felt magical and indescribable, or, other things too. Maybe the first time, if you have kids, like that they said something to you or whatever. The first time something magical happens, it is magical. But the more that happens, eventually it becomes kind of expected, or we take it for granted, or it just kind of sounds normal. Same goes with food. So the first time you're starting intuitive eating and you have that brownie sundae or you have that cookie, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so good. But eventually, once you know, okay, this cookie's not going anywhere, it doesn't, you get used to it, and eventually you start wanting other things besides cookies and brownies and all that, which is really important. And that's kind of the whole point of the process, is to habituate yourself and to get used to those foods so you don't feel so drawn or like they have a hold over you. So the second fear is, I've tried that before and it didn't work. The problem is that when people say this, usually they didn't actually try it before. And if they did, they probably didn't try it long enough. But let's say they didn't really try it. It's probably because it was not unconditional permission. That word is so important. And it makes all the difference. So if they said they tried it before, I'm sure maybe you were dieting before and you were like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to stop dieting. I'm just going to let myself be a normal eater. And I just can't diet right now. So I'm going to take a week off, or we're just going to stop. And so that is completely different from intuitive eating. So just being like, I'm just going to eat whatever, I'm done with this diet. You were likely overeating because you were feeling rebellious. You were feeling your body was underfed. You were feeling restricted. So that kind of experience is not the same as intuitive eating. That's what the authors call pseudo permission, when they were saying, well, this is fine because you've been dieting for a long time, or this is fine because you can't diet forever and you just need a break, or you've lost weight, so it's fine. So that pseudo permission isn't the same, and it makes people feel like they've tried before and they failed, when really they weren't trying the actual thing. So that can kind of make it scary because you think you've tried and you really haven't. If there was any guilt or regret when you thought that you had tried before, then it wasn't really the same thing. So I always use cookies as examples because the authors do. But choosing to eat a cookie without a catch, so choosing to eat a cookie without a catch to come later, and choosing to eat a cookie while not really feeling like you should be or feeling badly about it are two different things. And the second one will not lead to peace with food. So anytime there's a catch, it's not a good thing. Okay. And oops, I didn't change the title of this one, my bad. So this one's supposed to say, I won't eat healthfully, sorry. But there's a reason, if you've read the intuitive eating book, that the principle number 10 is gentle nutrition. And they put it at the end for a reason. They actually say that the order doesn't matter, but the first one and the 10th one really do kind of matter. So the quote from the book that I really love is that if nutrition were the overriding priority now, and now being in the beginning, it would only perpetuate your restrictive thoughts. As you go further along with the process and all foods are completely allowed, your intuitive signals will give you good advice. So if they were to say from the beginning, well, these foods are good for you, you should eat these in plentiful volume and maybe try and avoid eating these ones so much, it would only keep the diet mentality going. So there's a reason they leave it for the end. But once you've kind of made it through the peace process, your food intake will balance out to include more nutritious foods and probably less play foods than in the beginning. And they call them play foods because junk foods is really negative, and it's not junk because it does fuel your body and it does give you pleasure. So it's not junk. Okay. But yeah, so it only perpetuates this whole good and bad food idea. And I know it can kind of seem unrealistic that eventually you'll stop wanting cookies and you'll want more healthy foods, but it really does happen. I went through a frozen yogurt phase for 2 weeks in the beginning, and I haven't had frozen yogurt in forever because I just really don't want it, and it's freezing here. But your body does tell you well eventually. But if you think about it, you know, the idea of eating a brownie sundae for every meal when you're first coming off a diet might sound awesome. Oh my gosh, brownie sundaes all day, sign me up. But in reality, like, how long do you think that would take before you wanted something different? I know at this point, if you've been trying intuitive eating for a while, you're already probably past that point, but eventually your body does want other foods, so that's good. I found this and it made me happy. Even the Cookie Monster eventually grew tired of cookies. I don't know if you guys have seen like the new Cookie Monster, but they like try and make them eat vegetables. So then I found this and I thought this was funny. But yeah, so eventually if he can grow tired of cookies, we can grow tired of cookies, right? Okay. So I'm almost to the end here, sorry. So how do I do this? Do being the operative word there, because we do have to actually go through this. So there are 5 steps that they kind of talk about in the book. The first one is to actually pay attention to the foods that you like and make a list of them. And making a list is really helpful. So if you, I should have brought my journal, but I did this in the beginning and I put a check by the foods that I actually ate and circled all the ones I'd been restricting or caused me to feel guilty when I eat them. And then I just kind of worked through the list one by one, went to the store, bought it, or went to like a frozen yogurt place and bought it there. But the important thing is to not just work through the list and just eat all the food and not think about it or not be aware. The biggest thing that you should do is to check in with yourself while you're eating it and after you're eating it, and not only listen to how your mind feels, because your mind might love it, but you really need to check in with your body and, okay, do I have a stomach ache? Did I just get an energy crash? Do I feel lethargic? Do I feel, how do you feel after? And if you find that you like it, give that sucker a check and keep on eating it. Whenever you feel hungry, whenever your body's like, yeah, let's eat some of that. And the tip that they mention is to make sure you keep enough of the food in your kitchen so that you know it will be there if you want it. This can be different for each person. They mentioned that some people that's not the best route to go in the beginning. Some people it's better just to know that you can go to the store and get it. But if you're to the point where you know it can be in your kitchen, it is good because it tells your mind, it helps you get over that whole idea of, well, I shouldn't have it in the house, or and get you more comfortable with the fact of being around these foods. So, but if that's too hard to have certain foods in the house, they certainly don't need to be there as long as you know you can go buy them if you want them. So these are some tips that have kind of helped me and that the book had also talked about, but you do not have to go through every single item on your list. My goodness, I had a long list. But the most important thing is that you go through it until you not only say that you can have any food that you want, but that you believe it. Until that you believe that you can have every food on that list unconditionally, keep going. But eventually, once you do believe it, you don't need to prove it to yourself on every single food. If you want to, you can, but you don't need to go through the whole list. It might be a little overwhelming. Again, the process is not meant to be eat whatever I want, whenever I want. Because the most important thing is that we're staying tuned into our body and paying attention to how the foods make us feel. Because our mind, if you're a Janine Roth fan, she always talks about how we can't really be friends with our mind because our mind is always going to want sugar and chocolate chip cookies and brownie sundaes. I mean, we're just wired that way. Even if, your body doesn't want it, even if you know that every time you eat one of those things, you get a stomach ache, your mind is still going to look at it and be like, oh, that looks good. So it's really important to pay attention to your body, which we need to do a whole nother thing about because that's really hard. And making sure that you're consistently honoring your hunger. If you are not always honoring your hunger, you're going to set yourself up for physical deprivation, which means you're going to set yourself up to overeat at some point, and it's going to make you lose that trust with yourself, and it's going to make it harder to believe that you can do this. It won't have been your fault, but if you're not honoring your hunger, it's going to make this process take longer. So if you're honoring your hunger, you won't have that physical drive to overeat. And then keeping the hunger scale in mind is huge. You don't want to eat any of when you're trying these new foods, you don't want to eat them on either extreme. So when you're absolutely stuffed or when you're absolutely starving, because it's going to compromise the experience. So if you're really stuffed, it's not going to taste good. And then if you're really starving, you're going to be likely to overeat it. So they recommend that you wait 1 to 2 hours after a meal. So that way you probably are around a 4 to a 6 on the scale. And if you haven't seen the scale before, this is kind of what it looks like. And this is actually Kathy, who's on the call, shared this with us on a previous call. But that middle area is kind of where you like to bounce between. The 1 and 2 and 8, 9, 10 range get kind of not feeling so good and can kind of set us up for some not good feeling experiences. So when you're trying these foods, like try and stay somewhere in that range so it's more enjoyable and it goes better. Okay, so we're talking about making peace with food, duh. So any questions? Let's see, escape out of here. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, I see 4 gems. Okay, good. All right, so I am done with that, and I don't think I should be sharing the screen anymore. Someone can let me know if you can still see it, but I don't think you should see it. Hopefully you can just see my face. Okay, so just me, perfect. All right, so at this point, I always go through that so much faster than I plan. So if you go to the bottom, I'm going to tell you how to raise your hand. There is a button at the bottom you should see called participants. If you click on participants, there should be a button that says raise hand. So you can actually go in there and raise your hand just like you're used to from before. So I'm going to give you guys a second to think about a question. Okay. So Tana's asking, and again, if you have a question, you can go to raise hand. If you don't see it, let me know, but it should be participants and then raise hand. So Tana says, sometimes I know I'm hungry, but nothing really sounds good. I tell myself I can have anything at all, but nothing jumps out at me. What could be happening here? This happened to me all the time, and it still happens sometimes, and it's normal because it can be a little overwhelming to know that you can have anything. So sometimes you're like, you just don't even know what to choose, and nothing is like pulling you. So what I kind of told myself, and some of the things that I had read was, for me, my main goal is to just be a normal eater, just eat because I'm hungry, enjoy food, but not let it control my life. So when that happens, when I know that I'm physically hungry, but I just can't think of what to eat, I just try and pick something that I know I've enjoyed before, or I know that sounds maybe kind of good, or, you're just going to take a guess and see, because I don't want to spend 20 minutes thinking about what I want to eat, because a normal eater just picks something and eats it. I want to just move on with my day, and I don't want to spend all of my day deciding what to eat. And then, so when that happens, there's been times where I didn't know what I wanted to eat, and I chose something and I was like, ooh, this is not it. And when that happens, a lot of times it will spark something that you actually want. So like one time I didn't know what I wanted, and I went to Whole Foods to the buffet bar, and I got I don't even know what I got, but I was like, oh, nope, this wasn't it. And so I actually just saved it and went and got something else. I drove to like 3 different places that day. Now that's not ideal, but it at least told me what I wanted. So I just try and just make the process as quick as possible. I don't want to spend too much time deciding on food. Tana, okay, you said thank you. That's good. Okay, I hope that helped. Oh, Kathy, are you raising your hand? Oh, you are. Okay, it's supposed to tell me. All right, I'm going to unmute you, Kathy. Hey, Kathy.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Well, I had a couple questions because I've been going through a lot of kind of mental stuff, and I think I'm thinking about things too much. But, I've been listening to Janine Roth, the Women, Food, and God thing, and she's been having like questions and answers, and people are like, how do you how do you figure out what your mind wants versus what your body wants? And that's really hard for me because I have no idea. My body doesn't tell me what it wants.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm hungry, a lot of times I'll think of something and I'll be like, oh man, yeah, that'll be good. And I have no idea. She's always like, well, if you listen to your body. And I'm like,
Yeah.
my body's not telling me anything. It's all, I don't know how to tell if it's my body. Because she's like, your body doesn't really want a bunch of sugar. And I'm just like, this is so confusing,
Right.
And then
wait, can we talk about that one first?
Okay.
Because that one's really complicated because I listened to that hour-long Janine Roth call that you listened to. And yeah, she talks a lot about the whole mind versus body thing. And it's really confusing because listening to your body, my body doesn't talk to me. My mind does a really good job of talking to me, but not my body. And so the best thing I got from that, and she said herself, she's like, okay, well, what do you do if you don't hear anything from your body? And so what I did was follow her recommendation of, okay, rather than, trying to listen for something that I just don't feel or hear, I just eat what I think that it might want, or I think that sounds good. And instead I listen to my body after. So if I eat something and I'm satisfied and feel good and I'm not hungry again for 2, 3, 4 hours, then I feel like, okay, my body must have been good with that. If I eat something like too much sugar, like she says, now this might not be true for everyone, but when I eat too much sugar, I get what I call a sugar stomach ache. So if that happens to me, I think to myself, well, if I'm getting a stomach ache, my body probably didn't need that much sugar or want that much sugar. So I scale back or know that it needs to be kind of like a treat rather than a common thing. I find it a lot easier to listen to my body after. If I feel completely neutral, then I'm like, okay, my body feels neutral, so that must be good. And I know Tana, I think her and I were talking, like, if you get an energy slump or you get a headache or you feel like, I don't know, distracted or unfocused, then that's your body telling you that wasn't the best thing for it right then. So I think that's easier, like learning from your body after and then making adjustments later. And then hopefully someday maybe your body will talk to you. I don't know. Does that help at all?
Yeah, it does. But, I will eat something and it will make me feel bad and I'll still eat it again.
Well, and that's kind of just the practice aspect of it. I mean, yeah, there's like, for example, like I said, too much sugar makes me have a stomach ache, but there's sometimes where I still go beyond that limit. And that's the mental thing. That's your mind wanting that when your body doesn't. And it's just kind of learning that I remember her saying your mind is not your friend. And she's right, because our mind is always going to want it and going to want too much of it. When it comes to sugar, especially. So it's just a matter of you have to choose, would you rather eat that or would you rather feel good? And sometimes maybe you would rather eat that, but the goal in the end is to want to choose to feel good, so.
Yeah, I think I'm still, I want to give myself unconditional permission, and I've been doing this for like 4 months, but it's just really, and I want it to go faster, but I know I can't make it go faster because I still feel like there's probably not 100% there,
Right. No, and we can't make it go faster. And I've been doing it 6, 7 months, and it gets better all the time, but it's not like a steady gets better. It's like, oh, it's getting better, it's getting better. Oops, I'm regressing a little bit, but I feel like, you're constantly kind of doing this, like the cliche roller coaster, but I feel like I'm constantly doing this, but like also going up, and there are some days where you feel like you fell all the way back down, but you really didn't, as long as you're committed to the idea of it, which I know that you are. So that's how I feel about that. What was your second question?
Well, go ahead. Go to Kelsey. Go to her, and then I'll come back.
Okay.
I can't even remember my second question right now.
Okay. I'm going to unmute you for a second here. But, okay, in about 5 minutes, I'm actually going to have it just gave me a warning a couple minutes ago that this call will end in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to give you the link to the second call. If you want to keep talking, then you can click onto that one. But Kelsey, so I love how you worded this. So I'm thinking I must have needed to start this series from the beginning, but you just eat. I love that because that is so like question number one when people hear about intuitive eating. I I'm just going to eat. Like, that's too easy. But it's crazy because it's insane to me that the idea of just eating food because we're hungry is now radical, because that's how we were born and that's how we were up until a certain age. Like, I'm sure all remember a time when you were a little kid and you were just playing and having fun, and food was not the main thing in your life, when you ran inside to eat when you were hungry and you're like, all right, I'm going to go play again. But now, once we get through this dieting brainwashing up until, however long we've been going through it, going back to that seems radical when really it's just normal. But yeah, essentially you just eat, like we were saying, foods that make your body feel good when you're hungry. But the idea of it, there are going to be times, and Kelsey, if you go back and watch the one before this, the eating when you're hungry, there are times that you're going to eat when you're not physically hungry. So I'm not going to go into that again, but the book Women, Food, and God is amazing. And yeah, you should keep going with it. So Jamie said, will you lose weight because you are not binge eating and eating smaller portions than before? So there is no yes or no answer to this, and the authors of the books themselves say this too, so it's not just me. But we're all different. We've all had different dieting experiences. We all choose different foods. We all have different activity levels. There is no way to say, yes, you will lose weight because you won't be binge eating anymore and you might be eating less. But I also can't tell you, no, you won't lose weight. You might not. You might like soon into it. You might down the road. But the fact of the matter is, and those of you that have been doing it for a while or seen my videos, weight loss has to be on the back burner, because as long as you're like doing it to lose weight, it's actually going to backfire, and it's just going to get you back into the dieting mentality. And we all know the diets just end up making us gain weight in the long run anyways. So Janine Roth, for example, she lost weight, but the cooler thing to me is that she has a great relationship with food now, and she's able to maintain her weight like indefinitely. She doesn't have to think about it anymore. It just stays the same. She doesn't yo-yo. She might go barely up and down a little bit, fluctuations, but what's even cooler than that is she doesn't care. Like, she's happy. She eats food because she eats food that makes her body feel good, that tastes good, and she doesn't have to think about it anymore. Like, that's, to me, like, so much better than whatever number on the scale says. But yeah, you could. So hopefully I hate answering that question sometimes, because I don't want that to be a reason that someone gives up on it. But I understand that it's, we want to just hear yes, but yeah, so that's a really long answer to your question. Okay, so here's the deal. I feel like there's some more discussion that can be had about this. So if you want to share or talk more, I am going to recopy you this link. And if you are on your phone or on something that's not your computer, if you go to your Facebook messages, I sent you all the second link, but I'm going to send it to you here again. So I'm going to end this call and start up the next one. If you don't join over there, that's fine. If you do, awesome. I'll see you over there. Okay, bye.